Hello, everyone. My name's Eric Kohn with IndieWire. I'd like to welcome Paps himself, Raúl Castillo. So, very appreciative audience for good reason. The movie really leaves an impact on people. It's one of those things that you can't completely summarize until you experience it. And a lot of that starts with the source material, this novel. When did you first encounter that material, and how did you first react to it when just reading the book before even you started working on the movie?
I auditioned for the film in the summer of 2015, and I read the script was sent to me, and I started reading it, and I thought it was pretty interesting. At first, I wasn't sure what to make of it. I saw two white guys' names on the cover, and I read this Puerto Rican character, and he was doing these things, and I was unsure of it at first, but then as I continued to read it, it was clear that the world was so defined and so specific and so rich that I remember coming through the front cover. I was like, this has to have some kind of source material, or this has to come from something. I don't know, what is this like? And then I saw that it was a novel by a writer named Justin Torres, and I Googled it, the novel, and I sort of read up on it and read some of the read some of the glowing reviews and just people's impressions. People seem to really love the novel and care for the story. And then I read the script and loved it. And I didn't think they were going to cast me, but I thought I'd go and audition for it and have a good time, and because the material was so good. So
yeah, tell us a little bit about that script, because I think one of the things that's so striking about the movie is that it moves all over the place in these really unexpected ways, with the voiceover kind of guiding you through this child's perspective. So, how did the script sort of give you a sense of what this movie was going to look and feel like?
Well, it was totally from. I mean, in the novel, the narrator has no name. There's in the film, they went with the name of Jonah, and the character of Jonah was very much his story. He's peppered throughout. It's very much. I mean, the more I read the novel and go back to the script, Jeremiah stayed so loyal to, and Jeremiah and Dan, his screenwriter, his co-screenwriter on the script, they stayed, I feel like, so loyal to the novel, but also adapting it, because you have to adapt the film. It can't be a straight translation of the novel, I don't think, but they seem to really stay loyal to the narrative of it.
So when you came along, were the kids already attached?
When I came along, Isaiah Christian and Josiah Gabriel, who played the two older boys, were attached, and I auditioned for the film, and Jeremiah reached out through mutual friends, and we met up for coffee in Brooklyn, and he sort of loosely offered me the role. He couldn't officially offer me the role because they hadn't found Evan. Essentially, they hadn't found their Jonah, but they were interested in me playing the role of Pops. But the production company wouldn't sign off on me until they had found their central character. So we continued to talk throughout the following year. They found Evan pretty soon after they had cast me.
So what was it like to get to know these kids, given the role that you have to play in the movie, and the fact that, generally speaking, working with kids on a set is thought to be a very different kind of experience than working with somebody older?
Well, the wonderful thing about the way that Jeremiah approached making the film was that he was intent on doing it with, I think, as many non-actors, which is a weird thing to say at Screen Actors Guild screening.
You might say first-time actors.
Yeah, first-time actors. He was he really wanted to, and so Sheila Band, who plays Ma in the film, and I are really the only, quote unquote actors, and everyone else for the most part I think were sort of they were found, and the three kids I know they scouted over 1,000 kids in the New York area. They looked at a lot of kids, but Jeremiah being a documentarian, I think he was sort of interested in going about the process in a non-traditional sense, which I thought I've worked with child actors before, and I mean my respects to them, because I can't imagine being that age and doing it as a profession. But it was really special to get to do it with kids that had no preconceptions of what it is to step on a set, because I felt like they brought a sort of rawness and an authenticity and honesty that kept Sheila and I on our toes constantly.
So where did you start developing the chemistry? Was it just reading through the script, or did you have workshops?
We read a couple times, like we read some scenes a little bit here and there. Public Record has an office in Brooklyn. We would meet a lot there, but we would, go to the park and play soccer, and go eat pizza and get hair. I think we got haircuts, me and the boys, one time, in Park Slope, and just hanging out. We spent one night in the house that we shot in. So we shot in Utica, New York, which is like 4 hours north of here, and they found this house in Utica that fit the film and the feel of the era, and we spent one night there with the boys, Sheila and I, Jeremiah and Zach Mulligan, our DP, and kind of improvising and like playing like sort of improvisational games and having meltdowns and fights and like that kind of thing before I think there was like a mutiny, like someone wanted to like leave the project. It was like before we'd even started. So it was but that was
you were really becoming a family.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then you have to bring that to the set, but of course a lot of times people say when they don't realize how difficult it can be on a film shoot. I mean, the long days, doing multiple takes. Mm-hmm. This doesn't seem like it was the most conventional shoot, because there's so much that feels almost experimental about it. But how did it compare to more traditional film sets?
Well, I think like I keep talking about this, but like I went to theater school and I studied playwriting, but you go to art school or whatever, and people teach you to be experimental and play and explore and take risks, and then you get out into the industry, and no one's doing that. Like right? Like everyone's playing their cards really close, and everything's driven by money. So no one's playing, no one's having fun, like no one's doing any of that. But Jeremiah, I think, being a documentarian, he had no preconceived notions of how to make a narrative film. So he really just wanted to explore and play. So the process was unlike anything that I've experienced. I mean, and we shot on film. We shot on 60 millimeter. And a lot of times when you're shooting on film, I feel like you're like limited, or you only have a certain amount of takes or whatever. And I never felt that while we were shooting. I felt that the camera was rolling a lot. There was a lot of improvisation. I think we stuck to the script in a lot of ways, but there was also Jeremiah just let us riff and go, and a lot of times and play in ways that were new to me.
How do we see that reflected in the movie? I mean, what are some moments that really kind of came up organically?
Well, there was definitely in like, I mean, if I can, I don't know, the dancing bit was like he let it like. I feel like the moment in the kitchen where they're all dancing, that was also the first day that we were shooting, that I was shooting when the bit where I'm cooking and sort of dancing, and that moment to me is so iconic in the novel, and it was also my first day of shooting, and I was a little intimidated, to be honest, like because you're bringing a story to life that's something that's like a lot of people love, a lot of people have already experienced this thing as a novel, as a narrative, and now you're bringing it, you're sort of inhabiting it, and Jeremiah just let us go. Like we had the parameters that were the script, that were the dialogue, but he just wanted to see us play and be a family, and that was the first time. But then there was also moments like there's a moment in my workplace. There's a line in that scene where Pops takes Jonah in his lap, and he's like having a moment with him while the two brothers are asleep. And there's a line in that scene that was actually, it's when I say, when Pop says, I was looking at you earlier, and I saw that I thought, damn, he's a pretty one. I forget the line. He's like, and that scene's in the novel, but it's in a different scene altogether. And Jeremiah allowed me, or I said, I really like that line is sort of emblematic to me of the themes of the film. Can we find a place for it? Because that it's a really specific moment between a father and a son, and I think it speaks to something that Pops is recognizing in young Jonah, and maybe it speaks to something greater. And I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but once I said that, Jeremiah, to his credit, was like open, and we found a place for it in that moment in the work.
It is fascinating sort of collaborative energy you must have been getting to be a part of the story in that sense, especially in a story like this where in some ways everything this guy is saying is contributing to the way these kids see the world. I mean, the whole perspective of the film is ostensibly from this kid's point of view, right down to the camera angles and all these different kinds of things. What is the acting challenge for you about being in that context, knowing you're essentially you're acting as someone's memory?
Well, I guess playing like a character that's based on someone real, but it's also, I mean, the novel's it's a novel, it's fiction, but it's based off Justin's life. It's based on his own youth, and so Pops is fiction, but he's also based on someone real. I think luckily I had access to Justin. He was there. We were jumping on the phone before we got up to Utica, and he was there all 6 weeks we were shooting the film. So he really made himself accessible, and he sent me photos of his dad and told me stories about him, that because I understand when you're young and you're experiencing these things, and I think Pops in the novel is someone, but Justin has a dad and he's a real person, and it was I think it was helpful for me to get his adult impressions of his father, his just to hear stories. I think that was really helpful for me.
I want to go back to something you kind of alluded to earlier, because obviously a big part of this movie is learning to be cognizant of having a certain identity, a certain racial identity. The idea that this is a mixed race household is something that is sort of percolating throughout, if not always explicitly stated. And you mentioned there were two white guys who wrote this thing together. What were some of the things that sort of convinced you that was not an issue in this context? That it doesn't necessarily have to be somebody who's lived that life to tell the story.
I think Jeremiah was always transparent about like the entire process. I mean, it was very unique because I auditioned for them, but we had a couple of mutual friends in common, and he actually he reached out directly and was like, "You want to meet for coffee?" And we met up in Brooklyn, and he's essentially loosely offered me the role, and quickly, I mean, I think not long after that, I was in touch with Justin, and I mean, I have such a reverence for writers. I think for novelists, for that I thought I was, I think early on I was sort of became aware that Justin and Jeremiah had a really great relationship to begin with, and that Justin was putting a lot of trust in Jeremiah as the sort of the director of the whole thing, and really bringing the novel to screen. So I thought if Justin, trusted him. I thought I was in good hands. But he was always transparent. He always included me. I was very much like, I think all the actors I think we were sort of involved in the conversation about the film. And I felt like a collaborator from day one. So that was really helpful. And I felt like the aspects of the film that were unfamiliar to him as a director, he sort of deferred to us as actors, or to Justin, really. So I don't know. It's hard to say, but it's a gut thing, and everything just sort of seemed right to me.
Well, and there's this broader issue, which is, you've been on this HBO show. I'm sure you're getting a lot of interesting offers. What sort of seemed off to you? When did you see it? What sort of roles did you see that, where you didn't feel like the right, elements were there in a sense? I mean, whether it had to do with representation or other factors.
I always feel like in my gut, I always knew, but because as actors, you're sort of like, instinctually, you're just looking for work when you're starting out, and you'll take anything and everything, and you feel it in your gut when something's off, and then you go through an experience and you didn't feel good about that, and then the next time that you're not going to do that again, or your little flags go up. So I don't know if I have any kind of like set standard of protocol that I'm looking when I'm meeting someone, but I do think that the more and more I continue on in my career, that I learn to trust my gut. Honestly, like I feel like I've known it. I've always felt it in my, when something's not right, or someone's being insensitive, or someone is not taking the care. I read for something earlier this year that was I was auditioning for it, and it was something I didn't even book, but it took, for instance, it took place in Mexico. This particular storyline, it was written by non-Mexican filmmakers, and it took place. I'm Mexican, American, and I'm bilingual, and this thing was in Spanish, and when I was reading it, it was so evident to me that they had, even though it was written in English, the Spanish dialogue was written in Spanish. And it was clear to me that someone Mexican had written the dialogue. I don't know who had written the script, but whoever translated the dialogue was definitely Mexican. And that was it was such a relief, because it was like so oftentimes like someone's uncle, like I don't know who they get to translate it. You're like, it's awful, like the shit that, and then the onus is on the actor to do the translating, or to do the cultural, like, shifts or whatever, like, and it's so sloppy the way that it's done. But these people in this project, I was really, I was pretty impressed with, like, they had really done their due diligence.
Hope you got the part then.
I didn't, but but it was still a really great script, and yeah.
I mean, the other thing that's really interesting is you're in this stage as an actor where you were on Looking for several seasons. You did the movie. That must have been a very particular part of your life. Yes, that's deserved. But I mean, you had a role to play for this very long period of time. When all of that wrapped up, this is a very interesting project for an actor to take on, because it's so distinctive. What were your sort of expectations about where your next stage would be?
I'm still learning to, all the time, to be like, I think for so long you just operate from like, I just need to work, and whatever comes my way, I'll like just take anything. And I've been lucky that some really great projects have come my way, and but now I'm starting to learn to be a little bit pickier about, and again, to trust my gut about the projects that I take on. But this one just happened. I mean, it was just the right sort of alchemy, where the script came along and the role came along, the right director, the right writers. Like it all just happened. And I think that, like, I think there's a lot of intersectionality between the looking audience and the We the Animals audience, and I'm really excited about that. But how I wound up in the film is sort of a mystery to me, and how I wind up in any project is it's always a mystery. You know, like,
And there may be some overlap in terms of sensibilities, but obviously the approaches, production-wise, are completely different worlds.
Absolutely.
And what have you noted from spending as much time in TV as you did? What have you noticed about sort of the contrast between those?
I mean, TV is like I come from theater, and I have written plays. I'm a playwright. I say that sometimes reluctantly, but but I have a reverence for playwrights. And when I started getting into screen work early on, I became enamored. I had a lot of friends. I dated a girl that was in film school, and I would watch all her homework. And then I had a lot of friends that were going to film school at the time, and they would take me to see like Cassavetes films and Kurosawa and Herzog and all these great filmmakers and I started to I became enamored with auteurs. I feel like directors are sort of the playwrights of the film world. They're the visionaries, they're whose voice you're becoming, you're channeling. And in TV, there's so many cooks in the kitchen. It's a miracle anything gets made. Honestly, like because there's so many people whose opinions, are part of it. What was beautiful about the process of making the film about We the Animals was that Scene Reach really gave Jeremiah a lot of I mean, just not just a lot, but all the room to explore. They sort of let him do his thing, and they stayed out. Like they let him, and that I think when it's too many people, sort of, it becomes difficult, to really, and then so I don't know. It's a kooky thing that learning that, because I come from theater, and so everyone's there to serve the playwright. There's one vision. It's like we're here, and then anyone who's not serving the playwright, get out of here. You're not. What's the point? Yeah.
So what about bigger movies? I mean, that's obviously a whole other kind of challenge. Is that are you even considering those kinds of things?
Yeah, definitely.
So I mean, going through something like We the Animals, you have these interesting sort of environments where people are supporting the vision of the filmmaker. What sort of standards are you bringing to the possibility of working on a bigger scale?
I don't know. I feel like I'm learning as I go, and I sort of have to, like I said, continue to trust my gut, and it's always about the role. I think for me, it's like, is it an interesting character? Is it going to teach me something about myself? Is it going to teach me something about the world? Am I going to get to will I feel satisfied? Will I feel like I've had a cathartic experience going through it? Not every job is like that. You're lucky if this was very special, and I know that not everything is going to be like this. So I'm excited about what's to come and sort of what doors this will open. But this is sort of I sort of got a little pampered, and not pampered because it was. I mean, we went up, like, we were a group of like 60, I think about 60 filmmakers, and we went up to Utica, New York, and we stayed in houses. We all lived together. We all sort of, it was a very communal experience. It was very unique, and we didn't make a crazy amount of money or whatever, but it was like the thing that we were making was special. So I know that, and I know that not everything is going to be like that. But I don't know. I guess I'll learn as it comes.
You're not totally done with TV. You have a show in the pipeline right now, right?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm going on the show Vida. Vida is a Starz half-hour comedy that's written and show-run by a childhood friend of mine, coincidentally, my friend Tanya Sriracho. And it's a East LA set. it's a dramedy. It's kind of like Looking, actually. It's not broad comedy. It's sort of more cinematic in scope, I think. And it's set in East Los Angeles. It's about like gentrification. It's not all that different than what's going on in the city. I'm excited to go on. It's a show that's like they had a first season. They did really well. It's a great. If you guys haven't seen the first six episodes of Vida, it's really quite extraordinary. It's an all Latino cast. I think all Latino writers' room, all Latino direct. Like it's crazy what they've been able to do. It's really exceptional, and I'm really really proud to be joining the cast. So.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah. I mean, you're giving people a reason to check it out. Mm-hmm. How important is it for you to have the Latino element in the projects that you're looking at now?
The thing is it's for so long. I mean, for a lot of projects, like for Looking, for Atypical, for 7 Seconds, for like a number of projects that I've worked on, I've either been like one or two, a couple of Latinos. I've been on these shows that haven't been like Latino centric, and it's actually. I'm proud of that. I'm proud of and these roles that are specifically Latino, but then it's not like they're not tropes or they're not like stereotypes. I mean, all those characters on all those shows, like my character on Atypical is just a bartender, he has an affair with this woman who's like a regular at the bar, and my character on 7 Seconds is a narcotics detective and who gets roped into this scandal and this crime really and now working on going on to Vida. I shot a film last fall called El Chicano that's also East LA. Ben Hernandez Bray is the name of the director and writer of the show, and that was an all Latino cast. We had George Lopez, Amy Garcia, Emilio Rivera. And just an all brown cast, and that was a really special experience to be like in that kind of environment. So I'm interested in being. I love the idea of going into these projects where it's all Latino, and that's really exciting, and they're quality projects. And then I also love being like the sort of the lone wolf of the pack, Yeah.
So they go from comedy about gentrification to an action movie, not too shabby. Yeah. Covering a good range there.
Yeah, totally.
So we'll look out for those. Thanks for sticking around tonight, everybody.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.